Hello, hello, welcome to the Turret of Pleasure here in the enchanted kingdom of Hermione. And I am your host and Lord Chamberlain, Zip Gun. Today on I Am That Sucker, we're going to take a little look at a chunk of time in the career of the late great Frank Zappa, largely courtesy of the Zappa Family Trust, which is essentially his kids. And it was a trust set up by Frank and I think Gail, Frank's wife, to continue the exploitation, if you will, of Frank's catalog. And there are, there are maybe three different types of people, four types of people maybe when it comes to Frank Zappa. People that think he was just a freak and an idiot. People who thought he was really funny and provided lots of belly laughs. And he was a pretty bitchin' guitar player. People that thought he was a very serious composer, and and that take him his every utterance they take very seriously. And then there's people like me who kind of think he's really just the embodiment of the American dream. An outsider who managed to become a very successful American artist, both in business and in art. And I think of him in the same way I think of guys like Charlie Ives and Conlon Nancarrow. But Zappa managed to work within the confines of the music industry, and he made a living, and he made a good one. So that factors into a lot of what I think about how the relative worth of his life's work. And by a happy happenstance recently, my dear friend Eric Prue, uh, through a happy little internet transaction glitch, ended up with two copies of the new box set available from the Zappa Family Trusts that I didn't even know was available. And it's a 4-disc set just simply called The Mothers 1970. And I think it's $65 on Amazon, which is not cheap. 4 discs. The sticker is quite great. The sticker is noteworthy. This stuff is from, as they say, 1970. 4-disc set commemorating the 50th anniversary of the 1970 Mothers. Because for now they are being called the Mothers. Features unreleased sessions from Trident Studios with engineer Roy Thomas Baker, and includes historical live performances mostly captured by Zappa's own tape recorder. And that is pretty much what you have here. Now, it's divided into 4 separate discs. Trident Studios, London, England. Disc 2 is Live Highlights Part 1. Picnic VPRO, which was a Dutch gig. Pepperland, 1970. Live Highlights Part 2, Hybrid Concert, it says here, and I'll get to that in a minute. Santa Monica and Spokane, and then Live Highlights Part 3, FZ Tour Tape Recordings, which are all kinds of weird things. Now, despite the addition of Roy Thomas, you would think with Roy Thomas Baker's name being predominant on this would guarantee you some kind of excellent sound quality. But you would be wrong, because no, this doesn't sound like Bohemian Rhapsody. It actually sounds like a typical 1970s Trident Studio recording that hasn't been mastered. It's very flat. There is not an iota of reverb on it. It's heavily compressed. It sounds kind of like crap, to be quite honest. Now, the Trident Studios is the studio portion of this 4-CD box. And it's really thin on good stuff. I mean, if you're a fan of Ainsley Dunbar drum solos, you're in luck. There's 3 of them. And they're cool. They're exactly like the one on the Grand Wazoo. So he does this great sort of discombobulated free time kind of thing, which he does very well. And I'm sure he was never allowed to do it in Journey. And he's a good drummer. I like Ainsley Dunbar. And this band is pretty good. Jeff Simmons on bass. George Duke on keyboard. Ian Underwood on keyboards. and Frank, and Flo and Eddie. Now, Flo and Eddie literally almost don't even appear on the first CD. It's mostly instrumentals. A lot of it is just guitar workouts. It's all okay, but you don't need it. The live highlights are slightly better. The Dutch one, none of them are in fabulous sound. Now, the point needs to be made here that this era is immediately before the era when Zappa started touring with his own Scully 4-track recorder and started documenting gigs that way. And when he started to do that, the sound quality of these went way up. So this is just before that. Now, in the era prior to that, he would tour with a UHER, UHER, stereo recorder using little skinny reels of tape. And he would run that or get his sound man to run that a lot. And that's where the vast majority of these come from. They're not terrible, but Picnic Dutch TV, that's what it is. 1970. It's been bootlegged for years. They found a master tape in the vault. Sounds okay. Pepperland, San Rafael. 2-track analog 1/4-inch tape. There's no real revelations in here, but you do get a really good feel for the flow of their live performance in this era that you don't really get out of the Fillmore record. The Fillmore record's pretty cut up. I'm not really sure what the idea of the Fillmore record was, but so if you're a real nut for this era, this is a pretty cool box set. There's a lot of filler, a lot of little dribs and drabs of whatever. And it does a Dr. John song on here. But having said all that, I am that sucker. I'm definitely going to make shelf space for this. Would I have been happy to have paid $65 for this? I wouldn't be. I would be kind of choked. It's not essential. And the funny thing was that when I got this, it forced me to bring out this. Now this is I got this in the thrift store for $1. And this is an interesting item because this is exactly, what do they call it? This is a Freaks and Mother Blankers. Now this is a release, came out in 91. Zappa had a deal with, who the heck was it, Rykodisc? Rhino, sorry. And he had accumulated, this is a bootleg that he found of one of his concerts. And so what he did was he decided he would bootleg the bootlegs and release them on his own label and say, screw you, I'm just going to take the money and run. Great idea. No, but the problem is these are bootlegs. So that you get this. Now this is an official Zappa product, mind you now. Basically, but nothing on the inside. Not a great cover. Boy, is that a bad cover. Woo! And this is there's no information where this is from. And there's one thing on here, the Paladin routine. Now there's two Paladin routines on the box. The one here and the first one on this one, I don't know if they're the same or not. They're so close. If they are not the same, and I'm going to have to literally line them up on a thing on the studio to find out, then they had this routine down to a T. I mean, it's precise. Having said that, there's some cool songs scattered throughout. They do a lot of the old Mother songs, Cruising for Burgers, Sleeping in a Jar, Holiday in Berlin is pretty cool. Ian Underwood and George Duke perform well together. Sound on this is almost exact. In fact, the sound on this is exactly the same as the sound on some of those, which leads me to believe that this is actually taken from one of Frank's own UHER 5-inch reels and then was pirated by somebody else who made enough copies for one of them to have reached Frank, and Frank said, hey, wait a minute, that's from my board mix. So he just took it and bootlegged it. Anyways, which leads me to the next pair in this one is, and this has been out for a while. Now, Zappa's next sort of incarnation of this band was the Overnight Sensation era. Once Flo and Frank got hurt and got mugged by a guy broke his leg, was out for a long time. The Flo and Eddie band had to break up. There was no work for them. And when he was finally recovered, he formed a new band, which was, a lot of people call it the Overnight Sensation Band. And that morphed into the band that's on this, which is a lot of people call it the Roxy Band. Now, the Roxy Band was the Fowler brothers, Ruth Underwood, in a very predominant role on tuned percussions. George Duke as the primary keyboardist. Paul Humphreys and Chester Thompson on drums, who were a wonderful pair. Bruce Fowler on trombone. Napoleon Murphy Brock is the new singer and flautist and sax player, all of which he did really well. Now, they did an album called Roxy and Elsewhere, which was exactly accurate because I think 3/4 of it was from the Roxy and then some of it was from somewhere else. I always loved this record. I bought it when it came out in 1973, 4, I don't know. What does it say here? It doesn't say. Anyway, it'll say on this. That had been a favorite of many Zappa files, myself included. It has a certain amount of humor. It has a little bit of social commentary because they do Trouble Coming Every Day and they do a good version of it. Lots of Zappa's great instrumental music, impeccably played, and then the Bebop Tango, which is kind of a performance art visual thing. Now, the good news is they videoed all this, and through an arcane, ridiculous thing, the video was rendered unusable because it couldn't be synchronized, if I remember correctly. In the late 20th century, early 21st century, they figured it all out somehow digitally, and they put this out. Now, this is out through the Zappa Family Trust, through whatever, and this is a terrific video because it's a prime second phase, if you will, Zappa band playing at their peak. He actually set the concerts up to be videotaped. It's excellent. And, which leads me to, and this I bought a while ago now, a couple of years, the Zappa Family Trust, because that's been out now for a few years. I think 7 years, 8 years. Time flies when you're doing stuff like this. Where does it say? Give me a date. They really don't like dates. Come on. It will not say. MMYX, Zappa Family Trust. There is no date on this. That is really annoying. At any rate, I've had this for a few years. This came out. That is bizarre. They refuse to put a date on these things. This I bought about 2 years ago. Now, this is the whole thing. This is all the recordings, audio recordings, that is, of the Roxy stint that they did. I think it was several days. And so what you have here is, yeah, the 12/9/73 show, 12/10/73 show, 12, where are we here? 12/10, 12. And then there's a bunch of Bolick Studio recordings. Now, these are kind of weird. Bolick Studio, if you don't know, was Ike Turner's studio, which is a really weird combination when you think about Ike in 1973 and Frank. You know, a Bolick studio apparently had like a cocaine delivery man in it. So it would have been a weird thing. And actually, Frank, Tina sang on Overnight Sensation, which is sort of an open secret. And yeah. So the Roxy rehearsals, that's it. So there's some Roxy rehearsals. Unreleased track. 12/12/73 Bolick Studios recording session, which is mostly studio take and chatter and whatnot. There's some music, but it's very much stuff in progress. And then there's 12/8/73 sound check, film shoot. So this is everything. Now this is 7 discs, and I remember this being something like $80. And $80, okay. I really do love the Roxy album. Now here's my beef about these 2 new boxes is that the Roxy box, I think you should put the original album in it as well, because what you discover listening to this box set is that the original album had a lot of overdubs on it, mostly in backing vocals and the occasional little synthesizer squiggle or just what I call kind of sound effects. And Zappa was a master at doing this on live recordings. He'd get the feel of the live performance and then he could polish it up and put some icing on the cake. Roxy might well be the first record he did that on. I don't think he did it on the Fillmore East record. At any rate, you don't get that on these. So when you listen to the takes that were ultimately used for the Roxy album, they sound flat. They don't sound as, and the whole overall sound is just a bit flatter. There's not much. It's they're documentary mixes, if you will, of these. What are, I think they're fairly important recordings. But if they would have simply put, instead of making it a 7 CD box, make it a 9 CD box or an 8 CD box and take away there's a whole CD of stuff you don't need here. Studio chatter and them rehearsing songs that I think there's a couple of songs that never made it anywhere. But this is for die-hard fans only. And I still don't have a digital copy of Roxy and Elsewhere. So I've got my original vinyl version, and that goes double for this new one, because first of all, this new one's not the greatest value. I'm so lucky I have a wonderful friend that gave it to me. And this essentially centers around the album Chunga's Revenge, which isn't a really great record, a transitional record, if you will. And but it's not on here. Now, I think the version of Charlene here is actually on the record, and they can make a big deal out of this. But I'm thinking, why didn't they just put the whole record on? It would have made a 5 CD box for $65. It'd be a little bit more palatable. So I'm glad they're doing it. I wish the children of Zappa well. Apparently, they're all fighting, and nobody gets along with anybody, and there's been all kinds of stupidity. I really would be happy to hear that they had solved all this, because there is a lot of making up to be done by the Zappa Family Trust. There was a lot of discord when Gail was running it, and now that she's gone, it would be nice if the children could kind of figure out a way to put the best look on the Family Trust. And they seem to be doing a fairly good job with these box sets. Certainly, I know that as we discover other corners, if good Lord knows, if we ever find a big trove of classical stuff that never came out, I'll buy that one. And if we ever find a trove of maybe jazz style Zappa, or maybe a trove of Synclavier pieces that never made it the light of day, I think those would all be interesting too. So I think there's still lots to cover. Of course, there's a million live tapes. I hope they don't concentrate on the later touring bands, because they all started to sound a bit samey. But anyway, there you have it. If you're a Zappa fanatic, you need all this stuff. If you're not, you maybe don't need hardly any of it. But you need the Roxy. The Roxy DVD is, even a dabbler wants that, I think. So there you have it. That's my verdict on it anyway. Thanks for watching, and subscribe if you haven't. And I'm gonna dig. We're in transformation here in the turret, so we're digging up stuff I completely forgot about. So we're gonna dig some stuff out and bring it to your collective attentions. Thanks for watching. Talk to you later.